Today, a really quick but critical tip for all Nikon Z users to create your own customized menu-wide, user mode-wide, bank-wide set of settings and be able to protect them even when you format memory cards. I'm going to give you a simple three-step process to accomplish that for any Z camera, from the ZFC or the Z52 right through to the Z9. Well, hey everyone, it's Hudson. Welcome to this week's video. This one really is for the Nikon Z user, or particularly for the newer Nikon Z user. I get a lot of questions about this. How do I save my settings? How do I lock my settings in stone? Isn't it true that if I format my memory card, I wipe out my saved settings? And also people getting confused, with cameras with the multiple user modes up on the user dial, like the Z6 and Z7 series, Z5 series, the ZFC, Z50, Z30 series. What's the difference between save user mode and save and load settings? And save and load settings are going to be the key that we're talking about here. That is the way that you can save every single menu setting camera-wide, and all of the banks and all of the user modes up on the dial, all those settings can be saved and stored away on your camera's memory card. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit at the end, why that may not have been the wisest place to store those, but Nikon in its infinite wisdom has given us that Z-wide, and I think it's a kind of a holdover from the DSLR days and the most advanced of the film camera days. And I'll talk at the end of this video about some ways I would love to see Nikon change that and make it all a little bit simpler. But I do have a really easy three-step process that's going to let you lock in and save a set of user settings that really is tailored to you and still be able to format your memory card without fear. It's just a little three-step process, like a mantra, and I'm going to say it a million times during this video. It's load settings, format, save settings. Load settings, format, save settings. And I can almost guarantee you that I'm going to be saying that again multiple times through this video. So, all right, well, I've got a little space here to the side of me, and I can throw this up there. I also want to point out that in showing you how to create these saved setting files on your memory cards, I'm also going to be making sure that you know that many of the cameras that I work with, both Leica and Nikon, I have those saved setting files available for free download online. They each link the setup video that I go through where I talk about why the settings are tweaked the way that they are for me, and I don't think that those settings files are necessarily ready to go for you, but maybe they provide a good starting point for you to tweak and adjust and get the camera working like you might like. And those are always available for download over on my website. You just go to hudsonhenry.com. You can click right here if you want, but it's in this video's full description too. And if you navigate into the training sections and free downloads, you can find those setting files, including for the Z52 and the Z9, and I update those with major firmware updates. All right, so, let me talk really briefly about this three-step process to save your menu settings. I first would just say, let's go back historically a little bit. The early DSLRs and some of the advanced film cameras, you had a two-step reset process, or two-button reset process that would go to factory defaults. There was a green dot on two different buttons on the body. If you held those both down, it reset the camera to factory default. And that was nice. It gave you a starting point, and those cameras were simple. They weren't nearly as complicated as, say, a Z9 or even a Z50, where you can custom assign different button functions. There are lots of ways to customize this to suit your shooting style specifically, and there are hundreds and hundreds of menu options to run through that you might want to customize differently than default settings. So a reset to factory default is less helpful in a camera that's complicated. And what Nikon has given us is the ability to save all of our menu settings, and that includes each of our menu settings in each of the four custom settings banks and each of the four shooting banks in the Z8 and the Z9, and each of the user modes on the user dial for those cameras like this Z52 with user modes on the dial to the memory card. All right, so let me show you that. That's the first thing that's important. We're going to be able to just throw my menu structure up here, and I'll showcase what I'm talking about. You'll notice, if I go into my menu right up near the top, I have save and load menu settings. That's the last place I was. That feature I always have easily accessible on the first few of my main menu settings, right next to format memory card. Like I said, we're gonna load, format, save, all right? And where those are found, so that you can get them into your My Menu, are under the setup menu. Format memory card is the first option at the top. If I was to go up to go all the way to the bottom of the setup menu instead of scrolling through all of its options, you'll see that right down near the bottom is save and load menu settings. For cameras like the Z52 that have user modes, there's another setting in there that's save user mode, and you can choose user 1, user 2, user 3. That's going to save all the settings that are that are set up in the camera right then to that user mode on the dial. That's a totally different thing. That's not saving every menu setting camera wide and all of the user modes. That's where you need to go down to this bottom of the setup menu and choose save and load menu settings. When you go into that, you've got a choice. If you've saved your menu settings to the memory card, you can load them from the memory card. You can also resave the current settings. If you've made tweaks that you like better, you could save over your old menu settings and it will write over the top of that saved menu setting file on the memory card, all right? So, I recommend that if you have two card slots in a camera, like the Z9, like the Z8, like the ZF, even with its micro SD slot, if you take the first card out, I'm gonna shut down everything for a second here. If you take the first card out, turn the camera back on, I've just popped it loose in the slot, it's not in, and I go in here, I can also save and load menu settings to the second card, only when the first card is out. Card slot 1 is the default. You pull the card out, you can save your settings to card slot 2. So putting my first card back into the camera, I'm gonna turn it off one more second here. Turn it back on. The first step is to get all of your menu settings set up exactly how you want them, camera wide. Say once you've got everything dialed in the way that you really like it, all your user banks set up, everything, or even as you're incrementally getting there. The key is to go in to your settings. So you're gonna, I like to use my My Menu. You saw where that was located at the bottom of the settings menu. I like to go into my My Menu and you save those settings. Boom, that's saving my settings right now to the main first memory card. It's in the slot. Then I could pull that memory card out and save them again to the backup card, all right? And if I have spare cards with me for the trip for this camera, I'll put each one of those cards in there and save my menu settings. Just as a backup in case I make some mistake or I lose a memory card, I've got my settings saved. You can also plug that card into your computer, and in the root of that card, alongside your DCIM folder with your images and everything, there'll be a settings file, and you can copy that to your computer so you have a copy along with you. You know, I offer those as downloads on my website, all right? So, now that you've got it saved, let's say you're out shooting, and whether you're working with, you know, a camera with user modes or a camera with banks, you're changing camera settings. All kinds of settings in the menu are getting tweaked through the day. Let's say you're in your action mode, but you're working with a slow-moving wildlife subject in dim light, and you've lowered your shutter speed down to a 60th of a second, and you've tweaked some different settings, and maybe you've gone into manual ISO. Maybe you've changed your focus mode. Maybe you've shifted a couple of control options for a specific shooting environment. You've made tweaks to what you would normally want your camera to perform like the minute you pull it out of the bag. All right, it's, you know, different shoots are different conditions are different subjects are different. At the end of the day, your camera's not in that original setting mode that you like it to be when you pull it out of the bag to start a fresh day. You've got a bunch of images on your memory card. So what do? Well, you know, my advice is you pull that memory card out. Got to open up my slot. Get my memory card out, put it into your computer, download your images, then put your memory card back in the camera. And we'll use the Z9 for the example, all right? So in my case, I like having these settings in the My Menu. It just puts them right next to each other, save and load menu settings and format memory card. Here's the part, you want to format your memory card, but your settings are saved on that memory card. Well, the key is to just go into the save and load menu settings option and load your menu settings from the card. Now your camera is in its default mode, the way you want to pull it out of the bag. You load menu settings, you go in, you format your memory card. I'm actually going to format slot 2 because there might be some photos I want to, actually I'm not going to format. I might have photos on this card. I didn't check that before starting this video. So I would say yes, quick format, all right? I'm going to say no. But you would say yes, and you format the memory card, and now all of a sudden, actually, let me just check. I don't think there's anything on this card. Well, there are a few images. All right, well, all right. So what about card 2? Well, it doesn't matter. If you format the memory card, when you go down into save and load menu settings will be grayed out. You've formatted it. That settings file is gone off the card. But your camera is in that pristine shape with all of your menu settings because you loaded them right before you formatted the card. Now you just go ahead and save those menu settings, all right? Boom. So they're back on the card again. If you were to go back in again, load menu settings would be active. So the key is load menu settings, format memory card, whichever one you're going to format, save menu settings back. All right. If you're formatting the second card in your camera, pull the first card out and save the menu settings to the second card. The only way to save menu settings to the second card is when the first card is not present. Okay. So it really is that mantra: load menu settings, format memory card, save menu settings. That way they're always on the cards in your camera. All right. And I think that you'll have to agree with me after you work with this system for a little while. Customizing these cameras takes some time to get them dialed just right for you, and there are so many options. Just go and look at some of my setup videos for either any of the Nikon Z cameras. The menus are deep and there are so many options. It's a wonderful thing, but getting it customized just the way you like it is a delicate process. It takes a lot of time and energy. Saving those menu settings is important. Being able to get back to them is important. Now, I promised I'd talk a little bit about how I think Nikon might have been able to do this a little bit better. I think first of all, it would be nice if these menu settings were saved to internal storage instead of the memory card. When you save menu settings, sorted inside the camera, and then you don't have to worry about wiping out your saved settings when you format your memory card. I think that they should be exportable to the memory card so that we can share between, if you have 2 versions of the same camera, or you want to back it up on your computer, or you want to share it with a friend like I share over on my website, my free settings downloads for these cameras. And I will say that that is how Leica does it, and they take it an even extra step further. Instead of having banks or user modes, Leica on the Q cameras has profiles. It's my favorite way so far. There are 6 nameable, customizable user profiles that cover every setting in all of the menus in the camera. And they're accessible in a little quick menu. It's just like if we were to go into our iMenu, the first time you push the menu button on the Leica, it pops up with a little quick menu on screen that you can choose selections like your focus area mode and which focusing mode you're in, and picture control and user profile. And there's a default user profile that's the basic factory default Leica settings, and then there are 6 custom programmable user profiles, which I said cover every single option in the camera, which you can name. So I have a standard user profile, a black and white standard user profile, an action user profile, a face detect user profile, a landscape and panorama user profile, which automatically change every settings in the camera. And you save those to internal memory in the camera individually through one of the menu options in their 5 pages of menus that is user profiles. You can go in and save user profile to user 1, and you can rename that standard. But it also has import user profiles and export user profiles. So you can export your user profiles to the memory card, which is what I do to share user profiles for my Leica Q cameras, or you can import them from the menu card, which is something that people that follow me and want to use my settings do by downloading my settings, putting it on their memory card, and importing it. So they're saved internally. They're menu wide instead of the banks being 4 banks for custom settings menus and 4 banks for the video shooting mode and the shooting menu, the shooting banks and the custom settings banks. It's all really confusing, and the only way to save those again is to the memory card, which is vulnerable to formatting. So I wish Nikon would think about making a simplified user profile system that stores internally and is exportable and importable from the memory card. They can name it whatever they want. They can do it in their own way, but it would just be nice, and it would be a little more secure for all of us who are using, enjoying, and making great images with these wonderful Z cameras and their deep and complex customizable menus. All right, so that's my mantra. Load settings, format, save settings. Load settings, format, save settings. And back up those settings on every memory card you carry in the camera, including second slot on cameras with 2 card slots. Just pull the first card out, save settings, and that'll put it on the second card slot. All right, everybody. So we're having a set of office hours before very long. You can always join up on those big free photography meetup get-togethers. You can click this link right here to go to hudsonhenry.com/office hours, leave us a question, and sign up to join us for free on YouTube Live or Zoom. And beyond that, I just hope everybody out there is having fun, staying safe, staying creative. We'll see you next week.